Welcome to our first seminar at Oslo Innovation Week with the topic of investing in sustainability and why life science matters now and in the future. We in the life science cluster are very happy to be able to present this area. We have two investors that are looking at life science investments from different angles and different backgrounds. And we also have three very exciting companies and projects that showcase this area across different areas of life science. Next, please. The life sciences offers solutions for all the great challenges of mankind. It spans health, marine, agricultural, and also the industrial sectors. All these areas have a strong focus on meeting sustainability goals. Before we move on to the next slide, I just want to let you know that this presentation will be taped so that you are aware of that as both speakers and as listeners. We see there are many synergies across life science sectors. So, for example, vaccines developed for fish are very similar to vaccines developed for humans. Solutions for agriculture can be also very similar to solutions in the marine sector. So there are a multitude of cross-industry synergies to be taken out to create new solutions for society's needs. Next, please. So we are in Oslo Innovation Week and we are talking about startup companies and new economies. Why are we then talking about Norwegian exports? Well, this is because all of these new startup companies, what we want them to become is the new type of companies that will be part of our future export mix. As oil is declining as an export income, we do not want to sit on a bench and wait for the next oil to arrive. We really want to take advantage of all those economies that we have and that have strength and develop them forward to the next decades. As you see, the mainland economy in Norway, amusingly enough, including fish, are 46% of the total export in 2018. We have a goal of 5 times doubling the fisheries exports within 2050. Many of the solutions to this are within fish health, within fish nutrition, that is life science. Within the health industry, the export is already 23 billion, even if this is not an area that has been a national focus. Comparing to Denmark, we see that they have a 20-fold higher export than us in this area. And that is also the life sciences that are the strong sectors here. So we see a huge potential for future growth. And also in the agricultural areas, the new technologies are not just solutions for Norway. If you solve a solution for Norway, those products will very often also be export products. Next, please. So then again, why life science? I mentioned that we need a new robust export mix. If we compare to, for instance, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands, Switzerland, UK, US, etc., we see that they do not have one single area that is the strong one. They have different ones. And we need to develop those that we do have into next generation industries. And the figure to the right, it's from the Icelandic Ocean Cluster and shows how industries, also the raw material-based industries, are developing into knowledge-based industries. And this is also where we see that convergence between industry areas create a lot of new ideas and new solutions. It's not either a coincidence that the last figure is a woman. We see that a lot of the new companies coming are incepted and run by women. So we are also supporting better gender balance in the new startups that we see coming. Life sciences also have maybe the highest value creation per job after the oil sector. So this is definitely a sector that we should develop more companies within. Next, please. So this slide, it's a bit crowded, but it's showing the development pipeline in the life science cluster. So we have companies from very early stage in the left down corner, 2 companies on the market and also publicly listed or internationally acquired in the right upper hand corner. We have different lines of companies within health on the upper left line, and if you draw a line from 0 and up to the right on the lower side, you see some of the supplier companies to the industry. We have health, marine, and agricultural companies, and we see that they are forming different trajectories with different capital needs and also different risk connected to it. And we have also started to look at the investors behind these companies. If we turn these logos around like playing cards, we see that there's a lot of investors that are looking into some of the same risk areas, the maturity areas. Some prefer pre-market, some prefer aftermarket and growth companies, and supporting new investors to come into this very exciting area, and also supporting investors across life science sectors to meet and connect is a part of the work that we are doing in the cluster. So with that, I think I would like to conclude my start, and I would like to introduce the first investor that will give us his angle into this very exciting area. So the first investor is Trond Riiber Knudsen from TRK Group. He has a history from McKinsey, and through TRK Group, he's investing in different sectors, and recently also seen the exciting field of life sciences as an important new area to look into. So Trond, I think I will leave the table and the scene to you.
Thank you very much, Hanne Mette. Very happy to be here today. And as you can see on the first page here, more and more in TRK Group, we believe that life sciences constitute both an attractive and important part of early stage tech portfolios. And if you go to the next page, you will see that when I was with McKinsey for 25 years, working with large Fortune 500s, including pharma and life sciences companies, I started to see a few years back that more of the exciting innovation in society and in companies was starting to happen outside the large companies, in more innovative tech companies. And actually we saw this in pharma and life sciences quite early, as these large companies in this sector started to outsource R&D and innovation to an innovation ecosystem around these companies, and rather relied on licensing, partnering, and M&A to put promising prospects into their commercial engine. So I started to see talent also moving to the startup world, and I felt that, you know, it would be more interesting now to switch from McKinsey to supporting smaller tech companies, including life sciences. We need to shift the mindset with, I think, both politicians and investors as to what is safe and important investments and what is risky investments. In Norway, on the left side of this picture, you see a lot of stuff that we thought was very safe. Big shopping malls, retail space, gasoline stations, sea drill, offshore drilling, supply industry to the offshore sector, large roads and infrastructure projects. The problem is that these type of investments tend to look like stranded assets these days. Look at the sea drill, for example. We thought it was super safe, 70 billion NOK market cap, and then it went bankrupt. And then it was refinanced, and now it's going bankrupt again. You know, and the shopping malls in the US, you can get for $1 if you take the debt. So this is the background for a few years back. I took initiative for this founders rebellion in Norway against the politicians, that we need to fundamentally rebalance our interest and investments into the type of opportunities to create new growth. And we have a fork in the road at the moment in Norway. So I've taken a very public position. Next. In terms of driving this change in Norway. And also a few years back, spent quite a lot of time looking at the opportunities in the health sector. For those of you who are not Norwegian speaking, to the right here is an article about the new kind of spring and opportunity in the Norwegian healthcare market from a few years back, where we talked about, you know, the very exciting investment opportunities in this space. Next. And this is the overview that we often use to guide our investments, particularly in the Norwegian market, where we are trying to identify capability areas where both the scientific community and not the business community in Norway have already proven a kind of top tier capability level from a global point of view. And very often you can find that being verified by the fact that we have built globally leading companies within these areas. And you will see those in the middle here. And often the people in those companies are spinning out new innovative companies on the right-hand side of this picture. And I served many of these companies in the mid part of the picture and have a broad network with people and then started companies. So that has been a lot of the background for our investments. And as you can see, life sciences together with, you know, immunology and what we see within ultrasound and diagnostics, for example, are three areas that have a very high priority for us. And where we think that we will see out of Norway some phenomenal value creation in the future. Next. In addition to that, it's important to recognize that the value creation opportunities in the tech ecosystem globally are shifting dramatically. The first 20 years of the kind of internet and digital hype was a lot about consumer internet. But those positions are typically taken these days by the Facebooks and the Googles and the Amazons and what have you. So we're very high on that S-curve. And opportunity has shifted to more enterprise software, B2B, like a Visma is doing in Norway and so forth. Still some growth opportunities, but the really interesting opportunities for the next decade is in so-called deep tech, including in life sciences, where we're just kind of scratching the surface on this massive S-curve of value creation and social impact. And you know, I think it's important to recognize that when you're going to go after those opportunities, you know, having experience is important. You know, having accumulated R&D time within your area of expertise. It's important to have diverse teams, to have global teams, tapping into different academic environments, being linked to the corporate world so that you can do licensing and partnering, being truly global and having the right timing and being tapped into the right universities. And this is the type of stuff we like in TRK Group, working with these type of people, with these opportunities. And it's even possible to analyze and understand the risk connected to it. Next, that drives into the type of criteria that we use to identify investment opportunities also in life sciences. And you will see that, you know, in life sciences, we can find this. We can find extraordinary talent also here in Norway that actually have the global benchmarks and documented IP and publications and are collaborative. And we understand why we're going to start here in Norway. Next. And we can find innovations that will drive new, better, cheaper solutions that having phenomenal social impact if they succeed and are really worthy of the support and can create massive value creation and are global in nature. And finally, on this list, you will find this notion of platforms, which we think is quite intriguing, where you're trying to invest into something that is not a binary bet like typically a molecule would be, but rather a platform that can have multiple areas of applicability. And as such is often a safer investment opportunity. And many of the life sciences opportunities out of Norway are typically platforms. Next. And as you can see, given this strategy and with our focus, we have identified a few really unique opportunities for tech value creation out of Norway, and health tech and life sciences to the left here is probably our key dimension where we find the most exciting opportunities. In addition, we have created some accelerator investment platforms, and to the right, including the Catapult Accelerator and the Antler Talent Incubator globally, where we have life sciences companies too. And then I've been working with the Lærdal family on their Lærdal Million Lives Fund, where we have established next a fund with an initial commitment from the family of $100 million, where this fund is solely focused on supporting and investing into early stage tech and life sciences companies that can help Lærdal achieve their vision of supporting and saving 1 million lives every year, which is why we call the fund the Million Lives Fund. So a lot of the work I do currently, I also do in collaboration with these platforms, including Lærdal. Next. But also in a TRK direct portfolio, we do find super exciting companies in Norway and that really have global interest. And you have companies like Exact Therapeutics, people I knew from my client, Nycomed Imaging, GE, and that are using basically droplets to insulate chemotherapy so that you can have bigger doses, and using ultrasound to basically make the membrane more permeable, which looks to have fantastic impact on many types of drug delivery. And Bill Castell, who I knew from Amersam and Nycomed Imaging GE, has really dedicated himself to this opportunity, which is a fantastic, I think, mark of quality. Likewise with URMD that we started out in Norway, this kind of symptom checker. My friend Laxman, who's the CEO of Reckitt Benckiser, worked with me in McKinsey. He loves this, and Reckitt Benckiser just invested $35 million into URMD to integrate URMD into all their digital offers globally. With Mentis Cura, that basically have more than 3,000 brain scans for more than a 10-year period, coming out of Iceland. My friend Jan Fikkan from Nycomed Imaging was central to a negotiation with Nihon in Japan to get this into the Japanese market, which is terrific. And also Ole Michelet is a chairman of SpinChip, also a friend of mine from the Nycomed Imaging days, is bringing this very innovative solution for diagnostics of blood and other fluids at the point of care at the same sensitivity as you would do in a lab historically. So it's a unique opportunity to actually get the right diagnostic very quickly. For example, in the ambulance, which is terrific. And then my friend Morten, here in BioMe, who's actually coming up with a totally new and much quicker and faster way to actually profile the microbiome, bringing that type of analysis to so many different applications, and already getting top 10 consumer health companies as customers. So just an example next of the phenomenal quality we find here in Norway. And you know, I would just urge everyone to kind of jump in and take part, not sit on the fence, and help the world change to the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trond. We are very happy to see the different companies and the different portfolios or the different angles you are looking into life sciences also in your portfolio. And I think that to solve the challenges that we have for the future, we need different types of investors to work together to develop these solutions. So thanks a lot again. And then I will move on to our next speaker. This is Ingrid Teigland Akay from Hadean Ventures. She has several years behind her in the London-based finance milieus. She's also a medical doctor, and she has established the first Norway-based international venture capital fund within life sciences. So Ingrid, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Hanne Mette. It's a great pleasure to be here with you during Oslo Innovation Week. So as Mette already said, my name is Ingrid Teigland Akay. I'm founder and managing partner of Hadean Ventures, which is a pretty traditional life science VC firm. Next, please. So we have offices in Oslo and Stockholm. Our headquarters is here in Oslo. And we have an investment mandate across Europe, but we have a particular focus on the Nordic region, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that is later on. We have, as Hanne Mette mentioned, we have a senior team that's worked many years together for a London-based global VC firm, and we now have this focus on the Nordics with Hadean Ventures. We have approximately $85 million, euros under management in our first fund. Next, please. So this gives a snapshot over our team. On the left-hand side, we have an 8-person strong investment team. And all of us have a specialized background within the healthcare space. So we have background from clinical medicine, as myself, from scientific research, from commercial side of the life science area, as well as investment experience. We have a back office that makes sure that Hadean Ventures runs smoothly operationally. And the whole team is very international. You see on the right-hand side, you see a representation of nationalities and languages spoken. On the pictures here, you can also see our offices. As mentioned, we have a headquarters in Oslo, and we also have an office in Stockholm on the Karolinska Institute. Next, please. So what we do as a venture capital fund, well, first of all, we go out fundraising like the startups do as well. We get capital primarily from large financial institutions and some family offices. And these are typically institutions that don't themselves directly invest into startup companies. So what we do with a VC fund, that they invest into us and we invest into startup companies, we help to channel capital from large financial institutions into startup companies. We raise this capital based on an investment strategy that we have composed, and that is based on primarily two things. That's based on the strengths of our team, so our expertise and what we're good at, combined with the market opportunities that we see. And with this investment strategy, we go out and seek our investment targets. And when we find something that we believe in and that fits our investment strategy, we invest into the companies take an ownership stake. We invest typically over a number of investment rounds, and we work closely with the companies to help them become as successful and valuable as possible. Next, please. And why do we focus on the healthcare sector? The one main reason is that it's a very large and growing market, and one of the things that's behind this is that we see a aging of the society across the globe. The population is getting older, and aging itself is not great for health. Age is a major risk factor for almost all known chronic diseases. So from that perspective, you can see that this is a market that's only getting bigger. Next, please. And it is a large and also growing market. As you can see here, it's split into several different sectors. So we have the pharma and biotech sector, that's the largest one. But also when it comes to medtech, imaging, diagnostics, and IT, these are also large markets that are growing going forward. Next, please. So we as a firm are very focused on responsible investing. And one of the good things about investing into healthcare is that the impact side takes care of itself. All the companies we invest into are developing products that address unmet medical needs. So from the default, these are companies that will have an impact. And that directly goes, if we refer back to the sustainable development goals, back to goal number 3. Another aspect that we in our firm are quite focused on is number 5, gender equality. And the background from that is that we see that per se, the companies we invest into are R&D companies, and we typically don't see much issues from other ESG aspects such as pollution, for example, or child labor, etc. That's typically not areas that our companies have an issue with. But what we do notice is that, as with many areas across business, gender equality is not quite where it should be. So this is something that we have a particular focus on, both within our firm and in the companies we invest into. Furthermore, we also address a couple of other areas such as economic growth and good work environment and also innovation. Next, please. Because as mentioned, we invest into the development of new medical products, and it's sort of typically in the venture space, which means that the companies that we invest into, that capital frequently goes to clinical trial programs. So proving that a product works in human beings, so testing it and demonstrating the effect in human beings. So this is typically a phase that comes after sort of the angel and seed investment stage, where Trond is very active in, and we're sort of before the stage where companies can tap into public markets. So that's sort of the typical venture phase. Next, please. And as mentioned, we are particularly focused on the Nordic region. As described, we have an international team that has worked globally, investing into life science companies across the world. And what we noticed is that it's a very strong investment environment in the Nordic region, based on that we have a long tradition for scientific excellence. We've had proportionally large amounts of capital going into basic research, which is coming to fruition. And we had a growing startup environment, which basically makes a very fruitful ground for startups to get started and develop in, and that's great for us as investors. Next, please. And there have been a number of examples of successes from across the Nordic region. Here are just some examples that have come out of Norway, such as Access Shield, where Access merged with Shield for a value of over $100 million. We had Pronova, that was acquired by BASF for $845 million. And of course, the largest one is Algeta, which was acquired by Bayer for $2.9 billion. So our huge successes in the past, and we believe there will be a number of more of these coming in the future. Next, please. We also invest across technologies. That basically means across the life science space, we do pharma biotech. Here is Radspherin, which is a product that one of our portfolio companies, Oncoinvent, is developing. We invest into medical devices. The illustration here is a heart valve reparation mechanism that another one of our companies is developing. We have a liquid biopsy company, Saga, and we also have a digital health company called Neurevent Labs, which is Finnish, and they develop a product for epilepsy patients. Next, please. Here is a representation of our current portfolio companies. We have invested into 10 companies from our current fund. 80% of them are in the Nordics, 3 of them are Norwegian, that's CardioMech, Oncoinvent, and Isonic. One of them has been acquired already by Merck, that's Themis, which is a vaccine development company that started developing a COVID-19 vaccine this spring. Next, please. All of our companies have an international outlook and ambitions, obviously. And we typically always invest into syndicates. And here is a representation of some of the investors that we co-invest in, together with. And these are typically specialized investment firms, both from Europe and the US. Next, please. So if anybody wants to get in touch with us after this presentation, that's very easy. If you go to our website, you can find the email addresses of all the team members. So looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. I think the maturity of an entrepreneurial milieu, the count of new companies, that's definitely one way of counting, but also the number of investors that are looking into a sector is also a way of counting. And we are very happy to see that both you and Trond and many others are now looking into life sciences. Then I am moving over to the 3 very exciting cases that we are showing you. They represent agricultural and wood industries, health and marine sector, but you will see throughout the presentations that there are very clear synergies between the life science areas within all of these business cases. So the opportunities we use in one or another area is part of the exciting features of these companies. So the first one out is Foods of Norway. Margaret Øverland is Professor of Nutrition at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences, NMBU. She has a background also including industry in hydro and also working with aquaculture and feed, as we talked about earlier on. And this is the topic of today's talk, as she is the director of the Center for Research-Driven Innovation, SFI, Foods of Norway. So Margaret, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this nice introduction. And here is how we are developing novel feed ingredients from blue and green biomass with innovative technology to meet the demands for feed and food. And next slide, please. And Foods of Norway is a center for research-based innovation, joining academia and industry. And the center includes agriculture, aquaculture, and forestry. Our research is all about increasing food production in Norway while minimizing environmental impact, especially on developing local feed ingredients, so we are less dependent on imports. And we are using spruce trees and seaweed, which are abundant in Norway, to produce these feeds. And we work with Atlantic salmon, but also other traditional farm animals. and we have already obtained important results. And I'll give you some examples, or 3 examples, how these sectors collaborate or cooperate. Next slide, please. And in Foods of Norway, we have with us 19 industry and innovation partners from blue and green sectors. And as industrial actors, they're important drivers for innovation. And in Foods of Norway, we have expertise all the way from the biomass to the final fish and meat and dairy products. And this way, we combine expertise from academia and industry with political support from our NGOs. And if we do succeed, the industrial partners will have a competitive advantage on these novel feed ingredients. Next slide, please. So the first example is how we use trees for novel feeds for salmon, making aquaculture a foundation for the forestry sector. And one of our very most important biomass is the forest. Nearly half of our country is covered with trees, and this offers large opportunities for value creation. And the key to unlocking these ingredients is the technology to convert them into microbial ingredients like yeast. Next slide, please. And this is the process. Forest byproducts are converted into wood chips. Then the tree fibers are separated into lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose. And then we have with our own enzymes, we are converting the cellulose into sugars. These sugars are then put into a fermenter together with ammonia, nitrogen, and other nutrients that are derived from animal and fish byproducts. Then we add special yeast strain to the fermentation media that grows well on this. The yeast is harvested and processed then into a high value feed ingredient that we can use then in the diets for fish and other animals. Next slide, please. And here you see the Biorefinery at our campus, where we are producing yeast from spruce trees on a small scale. And there are 2 important things. And the first one is to find the right combination of these tree sugars and other nutrients that the yeast can grow on. And the second thing is to find the right type of yeast strains that grow well on this media. And we start our fermentation in small bioreactors, and then they scale up to gradually larger and larger fermenters. But of course, the next step is to take this further into a commercial setting. Next slide, please. And I mentioned our collaboration with industry is very important. So we work with the biorefinery industry, Borregaard, which has one of the world's most advanced biorefinery. And they're just located south of campus. And they have access to much larger bioreactors or fermenters than we do. And this gives us important experience on how yeast produced from spruce trees works under larger scale conditions. And this is an important step towards commercialization. It also provides large amount of yeast for our trials with fish and other animals. But if we need to scale up the production further, we also work with Lallemand, who is one of the world's largest yeast producers. And next slide, please. And the second example is how we make novel feeds from seaweed. And seaweed is unique in many ways. They only need 2 impact or input factors to grow, namely seaweed and sunlight. And they have a high environmental value, and they can be used for a wide range of different products, including feed, as you can see here. In Norway, the seaweed industry is mainly based on the brown seaweed species. And use of seaweed has a long tradition in animal feeds, but their nutritional value is limited because of the high ash content and the content of complex carbohydrates that have a low digestibility. So if we're going to use seaweed in modern feeds, we need to think differently. And access to biotechnology has opened up many opportunities. Next slide, please. And in order to develop a seaweed-based industry in Norway, the biomass needs to be processed in a cost-efficient way through a holistic cascading biorefinery approach, where we're using the entire biomass for a wide range of different products. And in Foods of Norway, we are using the seaweed biomass as a feedstock to produce microbial ingredients. Also here we are then breaking down the seaweed biomass by enzyme assistant hydrolysis into sugars and other nutrients that we then use in the fermentation media to produce yeast, as I've shown you before. And again, here we are also using our tailor-made enzymes that are specific for this type of biomass. But seaweed also contain a wide range of bioactive components that has documented health effects. And we're also taking these bioactive components directly out of the seaweed biomass. Alternatively, we can also take the proteins out of the biomass, but this does require cost-efficient methods. Next slide, please. Back one step, please. So, microbial ingredients like yeast can be produced from these abundant resources. Next click, please. And yeast is a high-quality protein source. It contains about 50 to 60% protein, and it has a favorable amino acid profile. And yeast also contain a wide range of bioactive components that can have a positive effect on health. They also have a small environmental impact. They don't require any agricultural land or uses very little fresh water. And they can be produced year-round, independent on changing climatic conditions. Next slide, please. And we have carried out a series of experiments with yeast and diets for salmon, both in the freshwater and the seawater stage. And in general, our results shows that the fish, they eat well, they grow well, and they have a high feed efficiency. But the nutritional value of the yeast do depend on the type of yeast strain, the fermentation conditions, and how we process this yeast after harvest. And these are all factors that we are working on optimizing in Foods of Norway. Next slide, please. And an important task is to document value-added effects of the yeast, because yeast cannot compete with the cheap prices of plant proteins, such as soy protein concentrates. So we are looking for added value in terms of additional benefits for health. And yeast do contain a wide range of different bioactive components, such as beta-glucans, mannans, nucleic acid, and antioxidants. And our results shows that salmon fed these yeast-based diets have several positive effects on health when they're fed these type of diets. And this is important for the overall profitability. Next slide, please. And we have also tested out yeast in diets for weanling pigs during the stressful time of weaning. And we also see that the piglets fed the yeast, they grow well and they eat well, and they have less issues with health and diarrhea, especially during this critical time of weaning. Next slide, please. And the third example is how we work together with breeding companies from both blue and green sector to develop develop method to improve feed efficiency of these animals, so we can produce more fish and meat from our local feed resources. And together with Aquagene, we have developed a new method that allows for direct selection for improved feed efficiency without needing to register individual feed intake in large production systems such as the sea cages. And this has a huge impact on the profitability and the environmental impact of food production. And in Norway alone, if we improve the feed efficiency by only 1%, we can increase the value creation by 300 million Norwegian crowns per year. And we also have shown that the technology that we have developed in the blue sector is also relevant for the green sector, where we have tested it out on ruminants with good results. So please, the next slide. So to conclude, we are developing novel feed ingredients, and we are developing methods that we can use in genomic breeding programs to work towards national food security and to minimize the environmental impact of food production. And we do believe that our model of working across the blue and green sector and in close collaboration between academia and industry is a key to success for innovation in the life sciences. And with this, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Margaret. This was very exciting, and I look forward to the results that come out of the center. We are moving quickly forward to the next company, ClexBio. Armand Håti is presenting. He is the CEO of the company. The company was established this year, actually, and based on work he did in his PhD at NTNU and Harvard. He also has been working in Aker Biomarine before starting his own company. So Armand, the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot, Hanne Mette. I would like to use this opportunity to thank the Life Science Cluster for giving us this chance to present to you our fresh off the boat venture, ClexBio. If you can move to the next slide, please. So what you see on this slide is practically the whole team of ClexBio. We're two founders, myself and my co-founder Manuel. As Hanne Mette mentioned, I came from Aker Biomarine prior to this, and also did my PhD in Trondheim, working on tissue engineering. Manuel on his side was working on biomaterials and tissue engineering at the University of Oslo. It's a bit of a funny story. I wanted to add a bit of a personal touch to this presentation. So we actually met in August last year, didn't know of each other before. We're introduced by our mutual network here in Oslo. I went for a coffee in August and then really immediately hit it off because we've been working on the same discipline, creating tissues in the lab and organ models in the lab, but with different approaches. So while I was at Aker, I'd taken over the technology from the TTO office in Trondheim, and perplexed by what to do with this technology, I met Mano, and we immediately thought that this could actually be something big. So we decided to team up and quit our jobs to full-time, starting at ClexBio in January this year. So if you can move to the next slide, please. So this is really the challenge and the kind of the problem that we're trying to tackle. We see that there is a huge demand for organs for transplants. So currently 90 patients die every day because they don't get an organ transplant in time. And this gap between needed organs and available organs for transplant is actually growing with a growing population. So in the long run, I mean, the vision that we have in our team is that there must be a solution to this. The question is when and how will this be solved? You can move to the next slide, please. But already now, we see that in the pharma industry, companies are opting to quite primitive in vitro models to try to predict the fate of a drug once it enters the human body. To kind of break this down a little bit, what they typically do is they design a couple of drugs that they want to test eventually in the clinic, but they start off with cells from a patient or a cell line and do some testing in the lab. Depending on these results, they enter an animal study. Depending on those results, they enter the clinics. However, there is a huge pull in the pharmaceutical industry now for more advanced models to more accurately predict the fate of these drugs, which will then mean reduction of animal studies. Some of them are redundant, unfortunately. And then eventually what it means is that you can accelerate some of these drugs to the market so you can then save more lives. So this is what we truly believe will happen in the future, that tissue models initially will be used for more accurate drug development, but then in the future for transplantation. You can move to the next slide, please. So companies and academic units all around the world are trying to solve this challenge, and the current organ models today look something like you see in the middle of this picture. This is supposed to be an air. In reality, what it is a gel matrix with a lot of cells just scattered inside. So if you zoom in, you see some cells. However, the current models are not alive, and the current bottleneck in this process of making these organ models in the lab is actually forming vasculature such that, I mean, you can supply the cells in this model with nutrients and oxygen, and then eventually bring this out of the lab environment. The challenge is very technical. What is lacking right now is a way to deposit cells in a very accurate way so that the cells can communicate and then form the tissues that they've known to form for many, many years, in a way that is also friendly to the cells that you deposit. So this is highly technical, and we believe to have that solution. So if you move to the next slide, please. Our technology, CLEX, is a hydrogel material that allows to deposit cells in a way that is 10 times more cell-friendly. And with using state-of-the-art hardware, such as this microfluidic chip that you see here, we can actually print at 100 times higher printing resolution. So in this image or in this video, you're actually seeing the deposition of primary human cells inside of these microfibers. And as you can see, these cells are very close to one another. The next step is then trying to stimulate them to form tissues. And we focus very heavily on the blood vessels. So this is a core to our business. We want to utilize this core technology to unleash the full potential of tissue engineering. We have a strong science backbone in our company with many years of research published in top-tier journals. We have a patent family that we own fully. We acquired this patent from the TTO office in Trondheim. And we have endorsement from 3D bioprinting companies that are printing these models that you saw on my previous slide, all the way to single-cell companies that are working with methods like you see on this video, and also in the pharmaceutical industry. If you can move to the next slide, please. So if you're not familiar with biotech, I mean, you might ask yourself, kind of how do you capitalize on an invention like this? There are multiple markets that we could approach, all the way from R&D to the clinics. On the left-hand side, I'm going to mention a couple of examples. 3D bioprinting is, in its essence, a 3D printer like you might know it. But instead of depositing plastic, you deposit a kind of squishy material, the gel, and then add cells to this, and you can print structures. That's one market that is growing rapidly. You have something called organ on a chip. It's basically companies and researchers making these small miniaturized organs, like a lung on a chip, liver on a chip, for diagnostics purposes or drug testing purposes. But then you also have more emerging markets, towards the clinic, where you have these cell therapies and other regenerative medicine solutions. If you move to the next slide, please. Our overarching vision is to stay true to trying to really develop tissues that can be used in the clinic. So we will focus heavily on making vasculature in the lab. So currently what we're doing is developing hardware solutions, the microfluidic chips and all the hardware that is needed to actually deposit these cells, the biomaterial, the CLEX solution integrated to the system, and also then the cells, obviously. So our goal is then to validate this in the lab, eventually test this in a rodent, and then eventually enter the clinics. This is something you might have kind of are a bit familiar with, either through pharmaceutical industries or medical devices. I mean, it's a long way to enter the market. You need to go through a lot of steps to verify that this product is safe, etc. This is very costly. So what we're doing in our business model is actually, if you can press next, please, is simultaneously establishing a commercial arm. So while we're developing our microchips and our formulations and using these to deposit cells in our labs, these formulations and these microchips can actually be sold directly to niche markets through B2B partnering. So we've established some partnerships already early on now, where we're looking to generate some early revenues. Obviously, these are not, I mean, this is not the main focus of the company, but these early revenues will definitely help us as a young team to hire new talents, but also then gain credibility in the market. It's very important for our brand awareness, and eventually publications will come out of this in the science community. In the midterm, we're looking to partner with these companies to actually make co-developed products. Again, if you look at some of these companies developing these assay technologies, if we merge with these, we can actually make more, let's say, holistic products that can enter new markets in the pharma industry to do more realistic drug testing, for example. Here we can tap into bigger revenues. Simultaneously, we're also looking to license our technology in food and cosmetics players. This is something that Trond mentioned previously. I mean, we have a platform technology, and we're trying to utilize that while we're aiming to enter the clinics. If you can move to the next slide, please. As mentioned, we're a strong and fully committed team. We're two guys working full-time today, but we're looking to expand our team with 2 more hires this year. And we're backed by a global network of advisors, all the way from science, technology to commercial strategy and fundraising. We move to the next slide, please. So we started full-time in January 2020. And since then, we've actually landed a couple of commercial agreements to start executing on our commercial strategy to develop these formulations for the R&D consumable market, but simultaneously also established scientific alliances is going to be very important for us to succeed, and already now landed significant funding from the Research Council of Norway and Innovation Norway of about $800,000. This is obviously a good endorsement of our core technology, but also our commercial strategy. We've enrolled and taken part in multiple startup competitions, to mention a few. Angel Challenge in Oslo, we came out as one of the 3 winners of that, and are now in the finals of 2 other competitions, one called Swiss Innovation Challenge in Switzerland, and then also South Summit in Madrid. It's going to be very exciting, obviously, a lot of work partaking in these, but I think it's also important for a young company like ours to get some visibility out there in the beginning. Then, as mentioned, looking to hire this year, looking for a formulations expert, and then also a business developer that can help us with our commercial strategy. And then we're looking to close our seed round and looking to raise another $300,000 to $500,000, and currently in dialogue with many early stage biotech VCs. And we want to get a VC early on so that we can set a good foundation and strategy, kind of good infrastructure in our company. If you move to the next slide, please. I'm going to end my presentation by saying, feel free to reach out to us, visit our webpage, or contact me directly after this presentation. We'd be more than happy to get to know you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Armand. And then we are moving to the next and last company. Hans Petter Kleppen is presenting ACD Pharma, which is part of the Nordli Holding family of companies. Hans Petter, I will leave the talking time to you. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm going to talk about one of our many research and innovation projects, the bacteriophage project. First, next please. First, just to show you who we are. So we're a group of companies, all owned privately owned by Nordli Holding, and we're different companies, but we've served the fish farming industry in Norway over the last 30 years with biological solutions. So no technical solutions, only biology. In STIM, we have veterinarians, fish health biologists providing fish health services. We also have biologists, ecotoxicologists, and taxonomists providing environmental monitoring services. And STIM is also a one-stop pharmacy for fish farmers, selling vaccines, sedatives, and anesthetics, and all the other pharmaceuticals the farmers need. STIM is located in all areas of the world where we see salmon farming, so Chile, UK, Canada, and Iceland. That's Iceland, the country, not the island. Polar Feed is the 5th largest feed manufacturer in Norway, or put in another way, it's by far the smallest. And it's the only feed manufacturer that is still fully owned and based in Norway. Acomed is a GMP accredited manufacturer of medical feed, medicated feed. And ACD Pharma, who I'm presenting today, is formerly a pharmaceutical company. We're holding the marketing authorization for benzoc, benzocaine-based anesthetics product. But in reality, or in essence, it's an R&D company developing new biological products and solutions for the aquaculture industry. At last count, we were 112 people in the group of companies, approximately 60 of them in Norway. And our turnover over the last couple of years have been stable around 700 to 800 million NOK per year. Even though this has been the turnover has been relatively stable, the aquaculture industry is a very volatile market. So it might look like our operation is very stable, but in reality, we're not making money on the same products from one year to another. So therefore, to stay ahead and to secure ourselves, we simply have to be innovative and come up with new solutions, new improved services and products. One of the very exciting innovation projects that we've run over the last 10 years is the bacteriophage project. So next slide, please. And this is what I'm going to talk about today. And one more click, please. Thank you. this is a project that's been ongoing for the last 10 years, and now we're very excited to move this innovation from aquaculture to land animals and humans. So first, a brief background. So bacteriophages are viruses that over the last 3 billion years or so have specialized on infecting bacteria. They're the most abundant organisms on our planet, estimated at approximately 10 to the 31st in number, which is an unfathomably large number. But put in another perspective, if you take 10,000 bacteriophages, as you see on the TEM image, and stack them on top of each other, 10,000 high, they reach 1 millimeter. If you take the whole 10 to the 31st and stack them on top of each other, you get a stack that reaches Alpha Centauri 12,500 times back and forth. So they're really the most abundant organism on our planet. They're also the primary agent for microbial control on our planet, killing an estimated 40% of all bacteria every day. And by killing off all the bacteria that become too dominating and too dense, they ensure the important microbial diversity on our planet. 3 billion years of co-evolution with their host bacteria have forced the bacteriophage to specialize. And because of this, each bacteriophage shows a great host specificity, most often to species or subspecies level. And this is a good thing because you can use bacteriophages to target specific pathogenic bacteria or other unwanted bacteria and leave the commensal flora untouched. But it's also a very big challenge because you need to know exactly which bacterium you need to target to achieve the desired effect. Next slide, please. So here you see the effect of so this is a little background on why we started this. Here you see the effect of the introduction of vaccines in Norwegian salmon farming back in the 80s and 90s. Antibiotics use, shown in blue columns, was extremely high back in the late 80s. And as new vaccines were introduced in the late 80s and early 90s, you see a dramatic drop in antibiotics use in Norwegian salmon farming. At the same time, production has increased 50-fold. So this is very, very good news. However, even in this very positive situation, there's need for alternatives to antibiotics, because not all bacteria are easily dealt with through vaccination. The Pischia situation in Chile is one very good example of that. So if, or possibly when, we encounter a similar situation in Norway and we have to revert to using antibiotics, we're looking at antibiotics use potentially 50 times higher than it was back in the late 80s. If we get back to a similar difficult situation. And this would be totally unacceptable. And it would surely be the end of Norwegian fish farming as we know it, if that came to be. And so with that nightmare in mind, our phage project was initiated back in 2009. Next slide, please. Since then, the antibiotic resistance crisis has been recognized. In 2012, the World Health Organization stated that antibiotic resistance is one of the greatest health challenges in the world. By 2050, as many as 10 million people will die from resistant bacteria every year. And already, European health authorities have stated that approximately 33,000 people are dying from resistant bacteria every year in the EU. And in Norway, the Public Health Institute has estimated that 70 people die from antibiotic resistance in Norway every year already. So this is something this gives us a feeling of importance. Next slide, please. And to solve the resistance crisis, we need to change the selection pressure, the selection pressure we put on bacterial communities. Next, please. And first of all, it's important to recognize that all bacteria are part of a larger complex microflora. Various resistance mechanisms are naturally occurring among these bacteria. And here the antibiotic resistance is illustrated by a red field color. Use of antibiotics kills all the bacteria lacking the necessary resistance, leaving the nutritional niche that enables the resistant bacterium to grow and spread, as illustrated. There is a direct link between use of antibiotics and spread of antibiotic resistance. Next, please. Use of the highly specific bacteriophages does not cause the same selection pressure. Instead, the majority of the microflora is left untouched, and a much smaller nutritional niche needs closing. This also means that we avoid the side effects associated with knocking out the healthy part of the microflora. Resistance to phage will arise, but careful selection of which phages are used, the ones that comes with a loss of fitness with the resistance, and combinatorial use of different phages against the same target bacterium make it possible to control this aspect. And most importantly, resistance mechanisms against antibiotics and phage are different. So extensive use of one does not lead to resistance to the other. Next slide, please. Next. Okay, thank you. In ACD Pharma, we've been doing research on bacteriophages for 10 years. One result of this is a product called Custus, YRS. Custus means control, which is used to control the bacterium Yersinia rucrae in Norwegian salmon farming. We have shown that when the phage are used in a correct manner, it's possible to knock out infection pressure from the target bacterium at the same time as the general bacterial load increases. We've shown that it's possible to avoid disease outbreaks after stressful handling situations like vaccination, and we've shown that it's possible to use bacteriophages and get the same effect as the standard antibiotic treatment, oral administration of oxalinic acid. There's an enormous potential lying in taking this knowledge and technology onwards to land animals and humans. Next, please. In 2017, WHO presented a priority list of which resistant bacteria is important to find new solutions against. Most of these bacteria is possible to target with bacteriophages. The gonorrhea and Haemophilus influenza are for some reason or various reasons difficult to attack, but the others are suitable targets. It will, however, require a lot of work to get there. So we have 10 years of knowledge and a solid technology platform for developing new phage-based products, but there's a long way to go and a longer way to go with human pathogenic targets than with aquaculture targets. And it will require a dramatic increase of investments compared to what we've already put in. Next, please. One important step in the right direction is a project that was initiated last year called the ClexBio, which was funded by Trond Riiber in Bergen. And it's a project run by University of Tromsø, and it aims to characterize ESBL, Klebsiella pneumonia, and to study the use of bacteriophages for decolonizing healthy carriers of the bacterium and also for medical treatment, which is one important step towards realizing use of bacteriophages in humans. Next, please. And the big step that we're working towards these days is pilot production labs in Leknes in Norway. So developing new phage-based products are very labor intensive, especially in the early phases, and it requires very specialized knowledge and experience to identify the correct phages to use. Another bottleneck is access to production, both for production of test batches for trial use and also for large-scale commercial production compliant with regulatory quality requirements. And this is why we're now working to realize complete value chain from research and development labs to production of bacteriophages in Norway, and generate a world leading infrastructure and knowledge base that will allow us to transfer the 10 years of knowledge on bacteriophages from aquaculture to land animals and humans. In parallel with this, we're running various R&D tracks. So ESBL Klebsiella is one, and we're also working with other target bacteria in both in land animals, aquaculture, and in humans. And this we do with together with partners to provide to complement our knowledge with knowledge from human pharmaceutical development that we so far don't have in-house. Next, please. So this is some of the people working in STIM and ACD Pharma on this development. Next, please. And thank you for your attention. Contact information can be found on our web pages, and I hope to hear from you if you want to know more or be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans Petter, for a very exciting presentation. And I look forward to having a factory on bacteriophages also in Norway, being world leading in new ways of attacking microbial resistance. So a couple of learnings from today. We have seen that the Norwegian new technology companies within life sciences very often are internationally oriented from day one. So many of these companies and the projects already have dialogues with international investors also. And I think that's a benefit for developing the investor milieus and the Norwegian ecosystem going forward. So by that, I would like to say a warm thank you to all the presenters today. And also thanks a lot to the people that have been listening in and watching the presentations. So I wish you a very, very nice rest of the Oslo Innovation Week. Thank you.